Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue looking at this build of the IP Engineering Shelly Tram kit, which I'm going to build into a model of Toby from Thomas & Friends. I've done an awful lot of work since the last video, but it's been a case of one step forward, two steps back, or in this case, like one step forward, 8 steps at least back. I'll go through exactly what happened, but let's just say mostly incompetence on my part rather than any issues with the kit. So the next thing I had to do before I could do any more of putting the panels together to actually make the body was to form these handrails. So at each side of the 4 doors, entranceways anyway, into the 2 end parts, there are these handrails, one on each side of the doorway to help you kind of climb up the steps and into the end. And they're made essentially by bending this 1.5mm rod, and the instructions show you how to make up a template. I made mine, this is just cardboard, I made mine out of some leftover plastic sheet, styrene sheet, because it's nice and it doesn't bend, but it's quite thin. For cardboard I might have needed it to be thicker. And basically you chop a particular length. I think it was 60mm, 80mm. I'm trying to remember now exactly what we were. Let me just have a measure of this one and we'll see. We were measuring, I think 60mm. Make sure they're all the same, and then you basically bend them over at the ends. And what you do is you put the rod in here, so it's butt up against this end, and then you've got a line marked here at a particular, I think it's 5mm back. And then you just grab hold of the metal in the right place, lined up. It's tricky to do under the camera, and then you pull it out and bend it over. So I made up 8 of these, and they were nigh on identical. I mean, you have to file the rods to be the same length, and then hopefully with the tool, that's the plan, is that you get 8 identical ones, so that when you put them either side of the doorway, they're the same height and shape, and that should all be fairly straightforward. So I made all those up, and then of course you have to drill the holes to put them in. So my first mistake was looking at this and not really thinking through what I was doing, and I grabbed a side panel and drilled 2 holes to take a handle. Remembering, of course, that the handle actually doesn't go into this. The handle goes into the upright that forms the end of the side. It's really obvious when you look at this and you look at the drawing, but that's how it goes. So that was mistake number 1. Fortunately, I'd only done one, and I hadn't damaged anything at this point before I'd realised my mistake. So we moved on to doing them in the right place. So this one, you can see this is one of the inside panels. So it has the handles here. That works nicely. As I say, you can see how it gives you the thing on the one end of the door frame when you've got it all together. It looks okay. Now, it does say that you have to drill the holes a certain depth, and you do that by putting tape around the drill bit so you get the right depth. That's what I've done, but they seem to be an awful lot further out than on the drawing, but I think it'll be okay. I think I'm probably just going to leave them as they are. We'll have to see when I actually start putting these together to see how close they look and what the gaps that's left between them is. We'll have to see whether they're deep enough or whether I need to make the holes slightly deeper. But yeah, so I've done this panel's obviously complete. It's got handrail on both sides, and this one's fine. But what I had some problems. So first off, these strips down the side are 3mm wide, and the rod is 1.5 mm, which leaves you just 3/4 of a millimetre on each side when you've drilled the hole. I mean, you can see that on this on the side panel wherever I've put it, the one I was just showing you. This one where I drilled, no, not this one, this one, where I drilled the holes in the side panel accidentally. If I get the camera to focus, come on, focus, there we go. You can see there's not a huge amount of of gap either side of the hole. And while drilling these, I had quite a few where it split the wood off one side or another. I obviously didn't get it quite in the middle, and it all quite vertical, and it split. At which point what I had to do was strip off this entire side panel, this entire side strip, and remake it from a new piece of wood, stick, glue a new one on, cut it to shape, sand it down, drill the holes. And I think I probably split at least 3-4 pieces while doing it. As I say, nothing wrong with the instructions. I think it's purely down to incompetence on my part of being able to hold a drill bit and get it in the right place. I would say, I'd like to say I got better at it as I did more of them, but I didn't, because I think I split the last one as well. The other thing I managed to do was, to start with, I was using a single one of these just to kind of drill the top hole and then position it and drill the bottom hole. But then I found that, of course, while I did my best to make sure these are identical, they are out ever so slightly on length, some of them, which meant that if I then tried to put a different handle into this set of holes, it wouldn't necessarily fit perfectly, and sometimes trying to force it in again caused the wood to split and caused me to have to start over and do the whole strip again. So in the end, what I've done is each of these is paired with a specific hole. So this handle definitely fits this side. This one fits this side. So they're not glued in yet, because you need to do the painting and the assembly without them in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to label the backs of all these with letters, numbers, whatever, and put masking tape on the handles so I can write on the masking tape, so they're all labelled, so they go back in the right holes. But if you think all that was bad enough, that wasn't the worst mistake I made. So, having worked out that I needed to put them into the panels, not the sides, I did the 2-in-1 ones. And as I say, after a lot of hassle of managing to having to split off and redo the beading, etc., I had 2 inner panels done correctly. Then I did the outer panels, and on both of these, I think, stupidly, I just repeated the process. So I laid the panel flat, I drilled the holes, I added the handle, and then realised I'd got the handles on the ends of the locomotives, not on the inside of the door frames, because on these, the handles go in the back. Fortunately, what I did when I realised this, was I actually just cut the ends, the sides off, and then swapped them over. So this side was originally on this side, pointing up, with the handle pointing this way. But I took it off, turned it over, and glued it back on, which means it fits pretty much at the top. I've had to do a little bit of sanding just to make sure these are nice again. But it means I didn't have to remake sides, and I didn't have to deal with drilling more holes. I just had to put it on the other side. And that worked eventually. But as I said, there was an awful lot of swearing, an awful lot of having to remake these pieces, and yeah, just an awful lot of, yeah, as I say, 1 step forward, 8 steps back. It was just a disaster from start to finish. But it is now done, which means, as I say, I can now start to think about kind of, mocking up doorways, working out whether this gap is big enough, whether or not. We'll have to see. But I think now I can actually start moving on to starting to assemble all these end panels onto the chassis on the footplate. So fingers crossed, that's what I'll be doing in the next in the next video. Hopefully, my plan is that I will start to actually assemble these. And if you remember, it's assembled by the fact that there's a line down the middle of this, and there's a line on the middle of the chassis. So if you look at this, it's difficult to see on the camera, there's a line here. So you glue essentially one lined up against the other to put it in the middle, and then you have the gaps for the doors and things. So hopefully I should be able to work out quite quickly, for instance, I know this is the wrong way around, but if I put that there, you can just about see. I'm just trying to work out whether I've got enough space for the handles, you see. That's an end one, so that goes on here. Yeah, I think there's probably enough space for the handles. So that's there, that's the end there. So it's a narrow doorway, but it's not terrible. So I think that doorway is going to be fine with those handles as they are. But until I actually get it all glued together, we won't know for certain. And yeah, that will be in the next video. but hopefully less problems. Hopefully in the next one. Hopefully I've run hopefully I've worked through all the incompetence on that section, and it won't reoccur on future bits of the build. But we shall see. Yeah, only myself to blame. But fortunately, as I say, because these are all glued together with wood glue, and there's plenty of spare strip in the kit, fixing my incompetence wasn't as bad as it could have been. If these had been, if these had been cut to shape and size in the kit, and there was only enough to build everything once, and I'd broken stuff, then I'd have been in a real pickle. Or if these were, I don't know, printed sides or something. I mean, they may have had then holes printed in them, but you know what I mean. Basically, I'm lucky that there's enough spare in the kit for me to be able to reconstruct the parts after I'd messed up. So yeah, there we go. Thanks for watching, and as I say, if you want to make sure you see the next video, when hopefully, as I say, the body will start to actually take shape rather than being flat panels, then please remember to subscribe. The button should be about here somewhere, and we will see you on the next video. Thanks, bye.